If we were to have read the Ethiopian Bible in the first book of Maccabean, also known as the first book of Maccabees, you realize that the heathens are part of the Greek kingdom, which includes Iraq, Iran, Syria, Rome, Egypt, along with Jerusalem and Asia. Therefore, if you was to ask Jesus if he is God, he would look at you like, yo, do I look like I was the one who gave the commandments? God didn't even speak to me. He spoke to Moses. In other words, Jesus is neither God or Christ. That's why Jesus is born in spring, while Christ is born in the winter on Ethiopian Christmas Day, January 7th, also known as Tasus 29. So let's read what the heathens have done. Wherefore should the heathen say, where is now their God? But our God is in the heavens. In other words, the heathens are telling you that their God is in the heavens. In other words, they made him up. So would you agree that the Bible was written before David or after David? In other words, according to them, the Bible was written after Jesus, when in fact the Bible was written before Jesus, as mentioned in Psalm 40. But we all know that Jesus is the son of David. So as you can clearly see, Psalm 40 is a Psalm of David. So David is literally telling you, in view of that, I said, here I've come in the roll of the book being written about me. To do your will, O my God, I have delighted. In other words, Haile Selassie, I named his favorite son after himself. So the root of David, named Solomon, David. And if you was to ask Jesus if he is God, he would look at you like, hello, good teacher. Someone asked him, good teacher, what must I do to inherit everlasting life? Jesus said to him, why do you call me good? Nobody is good except one God. You know the commandments. In other words, I wasn't the one who gave the commandments. And the first commandment is put no man above God. So Psalm 146, do not put your trust in nobles, nor in the son of earthly man, to whom no salvations belong. In another Bible it said, do not put your trust in the son of man. In other words, Jesus is not God. That's why Jesus himself would say this. Teacher Moses wrote unto us, have you not read in the book of Moses? God spoke unto him, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead. In other words, Haile Selassie is a living God. So let's watch. Let's listen.
Just the resistance to Rome. Mussolini was blessed by your foe. Yeah. For your mustard gas experimentation before Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Ethiopia was the place where your first experiment did be. Hey, with your mustard gas experimentation, your thermonuclear proliferation, trying to hold the image and deceiving the nations.
So they're using an image, an idol that cannot talk. So the heathens are doing that, when in fact the real living God is here.
And was named Ras Tafari Makonnen. His father was a viceroy to the throne and had his son privately tutored in French at the age of 6. At 18, shortly after his father died, he became governor of the province. In 1928, he led the troops that killed Empress Zoditu's husband, who was not of royal blood, and became regent. He became emperor on November 2nd, 1930, and was crowned Haile Selassie I, King of Kings, King of Zion, conquering lion of the seed of Judah, power of the Trinity.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, God himself as himself. So look what he will say. The heathen are come into thy inheritance. The holy temple have they defiled. They have laid Jerusalem on heaps. The dead bodies of thy servants have they given to be meat unto the fowls of the heaven. The flesh of thy saints unto the beasts of the earth. Their blood have they shed like water round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. Because remember, the heathens went to Jerusalem and changed all the ordinances. So we are become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. How long, Lord, wilt thou be angry? Forever shall thy jealousy burn like fire? Pour out thy wrath upon the heathen, that they have not known thee, and upon the kingdoms that have not called upon thy name. So what is God's name? for they have devoured Jacob and laid waste his dwelling place, which is Ethiopia. So he would tell you straight up who he chose. I have found David my servant, with my holy oil I have anointed him. I will set his hand in the sea, and his right hand in the rivers. He shall cry unto me, Thou art my Father, my God, and the rock of my salvation. And I will make him my firstborn, higher than the kings of the earth. My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips. Once I have sworn unto holiness, that I will not lie unto David. In other words, the root of David is Jacob himself. So watch who you see.
I saw the King of Kings. He is high and lifted up.